Great. Anything else before we get going? All right, so good afternoon. I'm Robert Lilligan, the chair of the Community Development Committee, and this will be the regularly scheduled meeting of the Community Development Committee of the Metropolitan Council. It's Monday, July 19th. And just to acknowledge that COVID-19 is still causing us to alter our usual procedures. The Metropolitan Council Chair has determined it's not practical or prudent to conduct in-person committee meetings during the pandemic. So we will participate in this meeting by phone or other electronic means. This meeting is being conducted by WebEx. It's being recorded. Members of the public will be able to monitor this meeting by going to the agenda online at the Met Council website, and you can view the live stream video that's embedded right with the agenda. So the first item, if there's no questions, I'll call this meeting to order and by taking roll call to ensure that we have a quorum for this meeting. So Michelle, please call the roll.
Yes, Chair Lilligren. I received advance notice that Councilmember Cummings will not be in attendance today, but I will start with Atlas Ingebrigtsen, Chambliss,
Here.
Johnson,
Here.
Lee,
Here.
Lilligren,
Here.
Lindstrom,
Here.
Musset,
Here.
Vento,
Here.
Wolf.
Here.
Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle. We have a quorum and can continue with the meeting. The first item on our agenda is our agenda. Members and the public, you can see it posted on the Met Council website. If there are no objections or changes to the agenda, we can move on to our business. Any changes or objections? Hearing none, we'll move on to the next item, which is approval of the minutes from the July 6th regular Community Development Committee meeting. And I would entertain a motion to approve, please.
Motion
So
to
moved.
approve by, second by Chambliss.
Thank you. Thanks. Did you get those,
Excuse me, I did
Michelle?
not hear who initiated the motion. Lindstrom, thank you very much.
Councilmember Lindstrom. Great. And second by Chambliss. Any discussion, additions, corrections to the minutes? Hearing none, Michelle, please call the roll.
Yes, Chair Lilligren. Atlas Ingebrigtsen,
Aye.
Chambliss,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Lee,
Aye.
Lilligren,
Aye.
Lindstrom,
Aye.
Musset,
Aye.
Vento,
Aye.
Wolf.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle. The minutes are adopted, and the next on our agenda is the consent agenda. There are 6 items that staff has deemed routine or non-controversial. So unless members want to remove an item for discussion, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda, please.
Vento moves approval.
Johnson
Okay.
seconds.
Great. Thanks, council members. Any discussion? Discussion. Hearing none, Michelle, please call the roll on the motion.
Yes, Chair Lilligren. Atlas Ingebrigtsen,
Aye.
Chambliss,
Aye.
Johnson, Lee,
Aye.
Lilligren,
Aye.
Lindstrom,
Aye.
Musset,
Aye.
Vento,
Aye.
Wolf.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. That motion is adopted. The consent agenda is adopted. We'll move on to our 3 non-consent business items for tonight. The first is 2021-184. It's a joint committee item. It's the 2040 comprehensive plan and also comprehensive sewer plan for the city of Lexington. And Jake Riley is here to present on this. Welcome, Jake. Mr. Riley.
Thank you, Chair Lilligren. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
All right. Well, we'll get right down to brass tacks here in the City of Lexington 2040 Comprehensive Plan. I'm Jake Riley, a senior planner with Local Planning Assistance. and I'll be presenting the 2040 Lexington Comprehensive Plan, which is in District 10 today. And I'd like to let the committee know that the City of Lexington's planning consultant, Chris Jansen, is on the call today. I'd like to thank him and the city staff for their work on the comprehensive plan. Before you, you see a slide that represents the regional systems with in and around the city of Lexington. It's also shown as figure 1 in your staff report. And although Lexington is adjacent to the Blaine Preserve Scientific and Natural Area, which is a really cool example of the natural fens that were once common in parts of Minnesota, especially in Anoka County, which was not something I was aware of before working on this plan. There are no regional systems within the city limits. The East Anoka County Regional Trail does run along the eastern edge of the city. On the next slide, you see the city of Lexington's community designation, which is suburban. It's located in the southern part of Anoka County along Ramsey County's northern border, and is surrounded by the communities of Blaine and Circle Pines. The next slide shows the city of Lexington forecasts, and this is also shown as table 1 in your staff report, that the city will grow by 330 people, representing 130 households, and there's an anticipated increase of 40 jobs in the city in the same time frame. That's the 2020 to 2040 time frame. The next slide also references table 2 in your staff report, and this illustrates the planned residential density in the suburban areas of the city. The overall density for guided residential land is expected to be 8.1 and 16.3 units per acre, which certainly meets and or exceeds the expectation of planning for average minimum densities of 3 to 5 units per acre for new development and redevelopment. Lexington's plan is therefore consistent with council land use policy. On the next slide, we show the existing land use in the city of Lexington. They are predominantly residential at 77%, with most commercial uses, of which it's about 11% near Lake Drive, the city's main thoroughfare. Approximately 5% of the city is parks and open space, and 5% is undeveloped land, which is defined in the plan as parcels and properties with no existing structures, not designated as open space, park, or right-of-way. The city's pattern of development is typical of cities in Minnesota incorporated after the Second World War, with a defined street grid and a central business district. The next slide shows the 2040 planned land use, also shown in figure 4 of your staff report. Portions of the central business district are defined in the plan as commercial redevelopment districts, which represent areas that are targeted for future development to address health and safety issues and meet the needs of the growing city and changing region. As previously noted, the city is planning approximately 8.2 acres of land guided for medium density residential and 13.7 acres of land guided for high density residential to be developed or redeveloped between now and the 2040 planning horizon for an overall average minimum density of 8.1 units per acre. The city also identifies that in the future, those areas could be developed as mixed use as long as they meet or exceed the expected minimum densities. So the findings proposed before you today on the next slide are that the plan conforms to Metropolitan System plans, is consistent with council policies, and is compatible with the plans of adjacent local governmental units and affected jurisdictions. The next slide shows your meeting schedule. This will be seen at the Environment Committee on Tuesday, July 27th, and then before the full council at the meeting on Wednesday, August 11th for authorization. I will remind you that Chris Jensen from the City of Lexington is available if there are any questions directly for the city. And then before you, today's proposed action is to authorize the City of Lexington to place its 2040 comprehensive plan into effect and to advise the city to provide to the council the date the watershed district approved the local water management plan and the date the city adopted the final local water management plan when they are available, and to provide the council with a copy of the final adopted local water management plan that will be included in the final plan document that the city adopts, and implement the advisory comments in the review record for transportation and forecasts. And so with that, I'll take any questions, or perhaps Mr. Jensen can take questions as needed. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Riley, for the report and for your work on this. And thank you, Mr. Jensen, for being here and for your partnership. Any questions or discussion on that report? Any questions?
Looks like Council Member Lindstrom has his hand up.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Michelle. Councilmember Lindstrom.
Thank you. No questions, but I'm happy to make the motion to move this forward. And I love representing the city of Lexington. One thing I really like is their motto. Maybe it's an informal motto where they say something along the lines that Lexington, they are small in size, but big on pride.
Cool.
I
Very
love
cool.
it. Thank you, Councilmember Lindstrom. And is there a second?
Vento seconds.
Thank you, Councilmember. And I was just in Lexington yesterday, as a matter of fact. I have a sister that lives in Circle Pines. So on my way out there, I went through Lexington. Great. Any discussion on the motion? Discussion. Hearing none, Michelle, please call the roll on the motion.
Yes, Chair Lilligren. Atlas Ingebrigtsen,
Aye.
Chambliss,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Lee,
Aye.
Lilligren,
Aye.
Lindstrom,
Aye.
Musse,
Aye.
Vento,
Aye.
Wolf.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle. That is unanimously adopted. We'll move on to our next non-consent business item for tonight. It's 2021-163. It's the Regional Park Master Plan Amendment brought forward by Ramsey County as an implementing agency for the Vadnais-Snail Lake Regional Park Master Plan Amendment. And we have Mr. Colin Kelly here to present. Welcome, Mr. Kelly.
Thank you, and good afternoon, Mr. Chair and council members. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah. Yes, we can. Thanks.
Great. As was stated, I am Colin Kelly, Planning Analyst, and I'm here to present the Vadnais-Snail Lake Regional Park Master Plan Amendment on behalf of Ramsey County. I should note that Gus Bloomer, Ramsey County Landscape Architect, is here today as well and may respond to some questions at the end of this presentation as appropriate. Next slide, please. Oh, looks like we're already there. Vadnais-Snail Lake Regional Park is located near the center of the regional park system in Ramsey County. Figures on the left and in the center are figures 1 and 2 in your staff report. The regional park consists of 1,696 acres, including the 444-acre Snail and Grass Lake section located in Shoreview, and the 1,252-acre Vadnais and Sucker Lake section located in Vadnais Heights. This technical master plan amendment focuses on providing a plan for the Snail and Grass Lake section to be more resilient to climate change, particularly flooding concern, and includes specific actions to replace or improve existing park infrastructure like trails, picnic facilities, and parking facilities. The figure on the right is figure 3 in the staff report. This plan amendment does not include the Vadnais and Sucker Lake section of the regional park. Next slide, please. Since the park was at the center of a multi-year flooding event that extended beyond the park boundaries, people were generally already engaged when the plan amendment process ramped up in 2019. That said, public engagement for the plan amendment was intended to reach as wide an audience as possible and focused on gathering feedback, both regionally and from residents who live near the park. In-person public meetings held prior to the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic were well attended. Pop-up meetings, also held prior to the pandemic, encouraged participation amongst residents of all ages. Online feedback was generally provided by residents living closer to the park, and 7,000 residents in the immediate area were notified of the planning process through the mail. In addition, social media platforms were used to get the word out even further. Finally, the plan amendment was available for a 30-day public review last winter. Partnering agencies and jurisdictions were also involved with the issues related to high water and flooding before the plan amendment process began, and Ramsey County engaged those partners throughout the planning process. They included the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources, Metropolitan Council Environmental Services, or MCES, Ramsey Washington Metro Watershed District, Vadnais Lakes Water Management Organization, Ramsey County Public Works, and the cities of Shoreview, Vadnais Heights, and Little Canada. Generally, the comments received from both the public and partners closely align with the themes and topics that make up the remainder of this presentation, focused on infrastructure, amenities, and natural resources. Next slide, please. The plan amendment focuses its development concept or redevelopment concept on 3 segments of the Snail and Grass Lake section. Those segments include the Snail Lake picnic area, the corridor segment, and the Grass Lake segment. This slide focuses on the Snail Lake picnic area segment. The figure on the right is figure 4 in the staff report. To make this part of the park resilient to future high water, the plan amendment proposes to relocate the small picnic shelter closer to the beach at a higher elevation, redevelop the lower parking lot to improve accessibility, circulation, lighting, and stormwater infrastructure, and create open space for volleyball or other amenities if space allows. Other future improvements include relocating flooded picnic tables to flood-resilient elevations and making accessibility improvements to the beach building. Improved accessibility of the boarding dock at the boat launch is also a priority. The development concept also proposes a new short trail segment that will act as a tunnel bypass and connect to the crosswalk at Snail Lake Boulevard and McCubbin Street. Next slide, please. In the corridor segment, the plan amendment proposes to reestablish trails that flooded along the east side using a boardwalk system where existing paved trails are no longer feasible, combining a fixed boardwalk running north and south and 2 boardwalk segments running east and west. The figure in the center is figure 6 in the staff report. The photos on the right are from a field visit in mid-June, showing different trail segments still underwater in spite of a relatively dry year. The plan amendment notes that the natural trails in the corridor segment will remain in their current alignment and unpaved state, as requested by members of the public. And Ramsey County is working with MCES to consider shared recreational facilities that can be used both for trails and for the maintenance equipment required. Next slide, please. In the Grass Lake segment, the plan amendment proposes a trail loop that encircles the entire lake using a combination of paved trails, natural surface trails, and boardwalks. The figure on the right is figure 7 in the staff report. 2,100 linear feet of boardwalk will connect the east and west trails along the southern park boundary. Natural surface trails will be used on the west side of the lake, along with an additional 600 feet of boardwalk. In addition, Ramsey County will continue to coordinate with MCES to relocate a trunk sewer line, restore woodlands, and ultimately develop a new 12-foot wide paved trail in the area cleared for the pipe. As in the other segments, the county intends to make improvements to trail elevations in the Grass Lake segment, where needed, to reduce flooding and ensure usability. That's really what this plan is all about. Resiliency to future high water and maintaining or improving trail connectivity and accessibility. Next slide, please. The vegetation present at the time of the public land survey back in the late 1800s was what ecologists call the big woods. Much of the landscape included tree species like oak, maple, basswood, and hickory. Oak openings, barrens, wet prairie, and lakes were present as well. The park straddles the mapped boundary of 2 ecological subsections or areas of distinct topography, bedrock formations, and distribution of plants, especially trees. The eastern half of the park is located in the Anoka Sand Plain ecological subsection, while the western half, the focus of this plan amendment, is located in the St. Paul, Baldwin Plains, and Moraine subsection. The oak woodlands and wetland portions of the corridor section and all of the Grass Lake section are classified by Ramsey County as environmental natural areas, which have significant, sensitive, and/or unique natural resources that warrant extended preservation. Current restoration projects include an oak woodland and wetland buffer restoration project and shoreline revegetation and stabilization project. Ramsey County is partnering with the Ramsey Washington Metro Watershed District in both restoration efforts. Next slide, please. The The master plan amendment estimates $3,850,000 in development and infrastructure costs. Biggest ticket items in the overall estimate include the installation of 1,200 linear feet of boardwalk in the area of primary flooding in the corridor segment, estimated at $1.8 million, and the relocation of the small shelter and redevelopment of the lower parking lot in the Snail Lake picnic area segment, estimated at $1.25 million. Please note that approval of the plan does not commit the council to any funding at this time. Further council action is required to authorize state and council funds for regional park implementing agencies. Next slide, please. The Vadnais-Snail Lake Regional Park Master Plan Amendment is consistent with the requirements of the 2040 Regional Parks Policy Plan, particularly Planning Strategy 1 Master Plan requirements, as well as other council policies included in Thrive MSP 2040. Next slide, please. The proposed action before you then is that the Metropolitan Council, 1, approve Ramsey County's Vadnais-Snail Lake Regional Park Master Plan Amendment, and 2, require Ramsey County, prior to initiating any development of the regional park, to send preliminary plans to the Environmental Services Assistant Manager at the Metropolitan Council's Environmental Services Division. I should note that the Metropolitan Parks and Open Space Commissioners voted unanimously to approve the proposed action at their meeting on July 1st. And with that, I will stand for questions and will remind you that Ramsey County staff is on hand as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly, for your report and for your work. Thank you, Mr. Bloomer, as well, for your work on this and for your partnership. Discussion in that report, Councilmember Lindstrom.
Thank you. Great report. Did I see on those maps that the boardwalk will go all around Grass Lake?
Mr. Chair and Councilmember Lindstrom, for the most part, yes. Boardwalks connecting the east and west portions of Grass Lake on the southern boundary. And then my understanding is the use of some natural trails on the western side with another additional portion of boardwalk connecting those natural trails where needed.
Great. As I recall, it's a real tight squeeze between the water and 694, and there's no path there now. At least when I was there, there was snow on the ground, so I'm not 100% positive. But so that would be great to see. When the time is right, I'm happy to make a motion to move this forward.
Thank you, Councilmember. I'll return to you to move it. If there's no other discussion, questions on that report, comments, great. Councilmember Lindstrom, a motion?
Happy to move this forward, and I'll just say this is a high priority for residents of this area. I've heard from, well, as Mr. Kelly indicated, there was a open house maybe a year and a half ago or so that was very well attended by residents. I think there was well over 100, maybe a couple hundred people there. Tons of Ramsey County staff, really excellent community engagement. I recall talking to several people about how this flooding has negatively impacted their recreation options. And so thrilled to see these solutions moving forward and can't wait till they are a reality. So happy to move this forward, Mr. Chair. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember Lindstrom. Is there a second on the motion?
Yes, Mr. Chair, Vento seconds.
Great, thank you, Councilmember. Further discussion on that motion? Any further discussion? Hearing none, Michelle, please call the roll on the motion.
Yes, Chair Lilligren. Atlas Ingebrigtsen,
Aye.
Chambliss,
Aye.
Aye.
Johnson, Lee,
Aye.
Lilligren,
Aye.
Lindstrom,
Aye.
Musse,
Aye.
Bento,
Aye.
Wolf.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle. That motion carries. And thanks again to the staff that are present that helped work on this. And we'll move to our third and final business item for tonight. It's item 2021-143, another joint committees item. It's our 2021 second quarter budget amendment. And Heather Agneson Huber is here to present. Welcome, Heather.
Good afternoon, Chair Committee members. Are you able to hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Thanks.
Okay, I'm here to present the Q2 budget amendment, and it's a big one, and it's post-session, so I do have a really short presentation I'm going to try and pull up just so you can make sure that you understand how all the pieces are fitting give me 1 second, please.
Great. Thanks, Heather.
All right, are you able to see a slide that says operating and pass-through?
Yes, we can.
Wonderful. Okay, so the first thing that this budget amendment does is it adjusts our operating budget. Pretty modest amounts, about $265,000 for community development, and that's essentially our whole division minus the HRA, and then it's increasing the Metro HRA budget just under $190,000. And what that is that when we adopted the 21 budget, it did not include any salary or benefits increases for 21. So what this is, it's making up of about a 2% salary increase and then benefits. And then regional administration staff also had that same increase. So this is carrying both division salary increases as well as regional administration costs that are passed along to us. There is adequate budget reserves to take care or to program for both of those expenses. On the pass-through budget, we have two items going through that we're requesting your approval on. The first is to increase our parks operating and maintenance pass-through line by about $425,000. And that's to reflect that we got additional money in this year's session than we had forecasted. So in our calendar budget, we have half of two different state fiscal years. So we always have certainty on one half of the fiscal year, but not the second. And once session is done, we're able to get budget certainty on that second half. So the great news for our parks implementing agencies is we have some additional money to pass through. The second item is more of it's an action item, but it's more of an administrative follow-through item. Earlier this year, when you were identifying your council strategic initiatives, you took policy action to move $4 million to the local housing incentives account. So what this is really doing is it's the trailing action from that policy direction. You'll see earlier, one of the consent items tonight was adjusting the livable communities demonstration, the livable communities funding distribution plan. So that was one administrative follow-up from your programming of these funds, and this is kind of the budget certainty piece. All right, there were a lot of action going on at the Capitol this year. So I just wanted to do a really brief kind of overview of where this is in the Parks Capital Project lifecycle, and then I'll go into a little bit more specifics of the dollar amount. So the green arrow is really indicating where we're at with this budget item tonight. So the parks work starts at the policy level. That's looking at Thrive MSP 2040, the Regional Parks Policy Plan. The previous business item was a really good example of some of the master planning and project development that parks agencies go through and the council adopts. Then we get into the securing funding stage, which is really legislative action. And now I'm before you asking to authorize the funding into our budget. So there's two major pieces in the capital program that we're asking you to bring in. The first is Parks and Trails legacy money. Just as a quick reminder, legacy comes to us so the legacy program in broad, so let's take it 100%, 90% of the legacy money goes to formula distribution for agencies. So that's what this top line is talking about. So on that 90% of legacy funding, there's no council match, and it's distributed to the regional parks implementing agencies by formula set in statute. And there's two different state fiscal years that we're bringing in. The first is the state fiscal year 21, and this is fantastic news. When COVID hit, the state held back some of the money initially because they were worried the receipts weren't going to come in, and that's good practice. They didn't want to come to us and ask for the money back. We didn't want to ask for the money back to the parks implementing agencies. But once the forecasts were looking more positive and they knew where the receipts were coming in, they've released that money back to us. So that's that about $2.1 million that you see. And then about the $19.5 million, that's the state fiscal year 22 legacy money. And state fiscal year 23 was also appropriated, but we will not bring that into our budget until about July next year. The second pot of money is going into our parks acquisition program. That's about $9.5 million. So that's state funding matched by council bonds. It gets distributed to agencies on a first come, first served basis. Those are the PAOF action items that you come. So the agencies get in line, they come to you and you do individual actions to authorize the project. So what I'm asking you to do today is to authorize the money, but with the parks acquisition, you'll take a separate formal action to authorize the individual projects. So it's just shy of $5.7 million, and that's bringing in the state fiscal year 21 and 22 legacy money. So that's the top line was the 90%. This is the 10% of legacy that's set aside for land acquisition. And it's also the environmental and natural resources trust fund dollars that we got. And that's a competitive process that we go into. Our staff, we write grant applications. We were awarded the grant, and it goes through LCCMR. There's an entire state process of how your projects get recommended. But the great news is we've got some money coming in. And then to match both of those programs, we're asking for just under $3.8 million in council match. These are programs that we program in our CIP. We plan for them. About the only thing out of the ordinary here was that there was a holdback from state fiscal year 21, and we're bringing those dollars in. The other couple things that are happening with this budget amendment is we're closing about just north of $12 million worth of completed projects. Those projects are done, they are spent down, and we are just kind of cleaning those right off of our books. With that, I guess I would stand for any questions. There are a lot of different lines, but in the budget amendment, and all of those are really connected to these projects. With that, I'd be happy to stand for any questions you may have.
Thank you, Heather. Questions on that report? And committee members, I can't see y'all right now, so just please speak up if you have a question. Any questions for Heather? Great. Hearing none. Heather has proposed an action that the Metropolitan Council authorize the 2021 Unified Budget Amendment as indicated and in accordance with the tables attached to the staff report. Is there a motion to approve?
Moved by Lee.
Thank you, Councilmember. Is there a second?
Second by Johnson.
Thank you, Councilmember Johnson. Any discussion on the motion? Discussion. Hearing none, Michelle, please call the roll on the motion.
Yes, Chair Lilligren. Atlas Ingebrigtsen.
Aye.
Chambliss.
Aye.
Johnson. Lee.
Aye.
Lilligren.
Aye.
Lindstrom.
Aye.
Musse.
Aye.
Vento.
Aye.
Gotcha. Wolf.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. That item is adopted. Thanks, Heather, and your team for your work.
Thank you.
And yeah, thank you. And we'll move on to then our final item, which is an information item. And it looks like Councilmember Vento, we're going to get you out of here on time, depending on how much discussion this last item raises. And so it's the Metro HRA Mobility Demonstration Program. And we have Ms. Terry Smith and Ms. Stephanie Paulson here to present. Ms. Smith, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and council members. I hope it doesn't go an hour and a half, but you never know.
You never know.
It's a really cool
Just
topic. Yeah.
right.
So we're happy to be here with you today. I'm Terry Smith. I'm the director of the Metro HRA, and I'm excited to have Stephanie Paulson, the assistant director, by my side today. We're going to kind of tag team on our presentation today, and this will be her first time presenting to you all. So, but you'll be seeing lots of her on upcoming meetings with the PHA plan and administrative plan and some other things. So I'm excited that we're filling out our team and allow her the time now to do some of this presenting with you all. So thanks for having us.
Thanks. Yep, thanks, Terry. Ms. Paulson, welcome. Welcome to the committee.
The first couple slides are, we're presenting tonight on the Housing Choice Voucher Mobility Demonstration Program. So I'm going to sort of set the groundwork, share a little bit of history with you, just some background on what the program is, and then Stephanie's really going to get into some of the program components in detail to share with you all what those are about. So next slide, please. So just as a background on mobility programs as a whole across the country, as you know, families face many barriers in placing their vouchers in neighborhoods of their choice. They could be financial barriers such as getting a security deposit, improving credit scores, things like that. Certainly landlord unwillingness to rent to a voucher holder impacts voucher placement. Limited awareness or exposure to neighborhoods and amenities in those neighborhoods can be some barriers to placing a voucher. Housing authorities across the country have implemented mobility programs to help reduce barriers of families with vouchers to live in neighborhoods of their choice, including areas with high performing schools, safe neighborhoods, access to jobs and transportation, lower crime neighborhoods, access to parks and green space and other amenities such as groceries and services. Included in that is the council's own community choice program, which Stephanie will talk about in a little bit. Next slide, please. So you may recall I've presented on this before, but there was some research done by Raj Chetty and Nathaniel Hendren in 2015 out of Harvard University. And the report that was released was called Impacts of Neighborhoods and Intergenerational Mobility. And really the question they were trying to answer is, do neighborhoods matter for economic mobility for families with children? And the research outcome just really showed that children who move to low poverty areas when they are young do much better as adults. So for example, they have 30% higher income as adults. They're 27% more likely to attend college. They're 30% less likely to become single parents. However, the research also showed that moving had little effect on children who move that were already teenagers. So the benefits really showed children who were 13 years of age or younger. And also moving had little effect on parents' earnings. But it did show that exposure to better neighborhoods during childhood matters. A second set of research was done by Seattle and King County more recently, and these housing authorities conducted a randomized control trial and a mobility program, and they offered a set of housing mobility related services to some voucher holders. Steph is going to get into some of the voucher, the service components, but it's housing search assistance, landlord recruitment, financial assistance, housing search assistance, and helping families overcome barriers. But that report indicated providing mobility related services helped create strong gains in the number of families that moved to resource rich areas and succeeded while there. So this evidence really showed HUD and others across the country that the evidence of these two research studies make a strong case that mobility programs are worth federal investment. As you know, our community choice program, the council's existing community choice program, has not come with any federal financial supports with that. So it's been a self-funded program. So this is really the first time in the history, our program's history, that there is financial support coming for these programs. I also think it's important to point out that mobility programs are only one strategy to assist families with upward mobility. And I sort of think of it as we want to have an upward or an umbrella of upward mobility supports for the families that we serve. And this is one of them. So for families that want to move to new neighborhoods or persist in an existing neighborhood, this program will be designed to help them do that. For families that want to remain in place, we hope to have other strategies to assist them. And one example of that is the recent Homework Starts with Home partnership that we have with suburban Ramsey school districts and providing supports to students experiencing homelessness and their families to persist in place. So that's one example of that. Next slide, please. So as a result of all this, the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, you will likely recall, offered $50 million for a Housing Choice Voucher Mobility Demonstration Program. Back in January, the Metro HRA and Minneapolis Public Housing Authority submitted a joint application, and we're so excited to share with you that we received an award under that program. So there were 28 applications from across the country, and 9 of them got funded. The Metro HRA and MPHA partnership being one of them. So this will be a 6-year program. The first year is a planning year, so we're currently in the planning year, and it will run through October of 2028. We also received 74 new vouchers for this program, and the program comes with $5.2 million to provide a variety of things, including the mobility supports, hiring staff to operate the program, etc. We don't actually have the money in hand yet, and we're working with Minneapolis Public Housing Authority, but you will see this money come through in a variety of ways in the future. Could be through a budget amendment. Certainly will include some in a 2022 budget and future years through the 6-year demonstration program. The Metro HRA will serve as the program administrator for the grant, and Minneapolis Public Housing Authority is really the fiscal agent. They were the lead applicant, and they're the fiscal agent for the program grant funds. Next slide, please. So this chart just sort of shows the agency responsibilities and what each agency will do under the grant. So as the fiscal agent, MPHA, they'll be the main grant contact to HUD, which means they'll do all the HUD reporting on the grant. They will be the main contact for the researchers, the national researchers. They will monitor the funding and distribute grant funds. So the funding will flow through Minneapolis, and we'll be working with our partners and budget and finance to figure out how that money flows through us. So they'll be passing some of the grant funds on to us, for example, to hire the staff that will work with the program. And they've also been a collaborative partner. For many years, we've been working with MPHA on program design and implementation, and I'm going to choke. Excuse me. And then Metro HRA will be the program administrator. Excuse me. So we will actually operate the program. We'll enroll the participants, we'll hire and manage the staff for the program. In fact, we have a posting out now for manager of outreach and special initiatives. And that manager will sort of lead this effort. And we'll be hiring some mobility counselors, which we will call mobility coaches, that will work with the actual program participants and do the actual coaching and provide the services. And again, we've been collaborating for many years with MPHA on the program design. Next slide, please. So how will the program work? I indicated it's a 6-year demonstration program that will be ending on October 2028. The program will include a rigorous evaluation with independent researchers, national researchers. HUD is providing lots of technical assistance for this program. But the whole goal of the program is to determine which mobility supports are most effective in helping families achieve success. Voucher holders will be randomly selected to participate in one of the groups for the research study. It's important to note that participation by voucher holders is voluntary. So they will be asked to participate in the program, and then if they agree, randomly assigned to one of the 3 groups. If they choose not to participate, their voucher is not impacted in any way, and they continue receiving voucher services as they exist today. The program will follow 1,950 voucher holders, and that will be 650 in each of these groups here. So the control group will be receive housing voucher services as they exist today. So although they will get a voucher and the supports that we provide for all voucher holders, it'll be, status quo. The second group is treatment group A, and they will receive a full comprehensive set of mobility related services. And Stephanie will talk about what those include. And then the treatment group B, they will receive a subset of mobility related services. And the goal again of the 6-year study is to determine which are the supports that help voucher holders succeed the most. Program participants will be required to use their voucher in identified mobility areas of the region. And we were able to work with some national researchers as well as our own research team to sort of define what mobility eligible areas are. The baseline data that we worked with was the Childhood Opportunity Index, and this is a comprehensive set of data, but that includes a single measure of opportunity for the entire United States, adjusted for different regions around the country. But the index data, the Childhood Opportunity Index is strongly influenced by the characteristics of the people living in places instead of the places themselves. And so in working with the national research and our own internal council research team, we added to that data. And we added some data to supplement the Childhood Opportunity Index and the data that we gathered as part of the council's report titled Choice, Place, and Opportunity, research that was done back in 2014, such as job accessibility, access to amenities like healthcare, libraries, services, those kinds of things. Let's see, next slide, please. And this is where I'm going to hand it over to Stephanie. Take it away, Steph.
Thank you for having me. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay. My name is Stephanie Paulson. I'm the Assistant Director at Metro HRA, and I am going to kind of go over some program details with you. What you are going to find, which I think is really awesome and Metro HRA is really excited about, is our existing community choice program is essentially almost a skeleton of what the federal government is testing through the mobility demonstration program. So as a refresher, Metro HRA started the community choice program back in 2015. Again, as Terry said, we did not receive any federal dollars to do it. It's just something that we started and in conversations with Minneapolis Public Housing. In just the way the world has evolved in the housing world, now Metro HRA is going to get a chance to test this at a more national level. What we've been doing locally and kind of what we've been exploring in different supports we've been offering to our families, we're now going to test with the demonstration program. Mobility services that Metro HRA has created and kind of supported through this community choice program is a pre-move counseling and financial assistance. So it's really using that person-centered approach to think through and support families in the way that we best can. And then we do some landlord recruitment with our outreach coordinators, some housing search assistance, and some post-move counseling. Currently, Metro HRA has, we don't have any people in pre-move counseling with the community choice program. We did that intentionally because we were really hoping and anticipating that we would get accepted into this mobility demonstration program. We have 8 people in post-move and 25 families have graduated from the community choice program. That's after 2 years of being involved with the program. Again, like Terry had mentioned, the mobility demonstration program is going to have different components of these four core pillars. This comprehensive mobility related services, which is the full service, and then the selected mobility related services, which is going to include everything with the exception of housing search. So you'll get some pre-move counseling, and I'll go into the details of what all of that means. But for those in the selected mobility related services, you're going to get some pre-move and some post-move, but you will not receive the housing search or landlord recruitment assistance. Next slide, please. So pre-move services, this is really, really individualized. So we generally will take, it's going to be taking an assessment and figuring out where families are, how we can figure out using trauma-informed care techniques and strategies to best support our region's most vulnerable families in the ways that they want to move and access areas that have been historically more difficult for our voucher holders to touch. You'll notice in these slides, that we're moving away from the language of financial literacy or financial training or financial education, and we're really looking at it through a lens of financial empowerment. So it is credit counseling, it is kind of saving strategies, it's anything that you can think of when you think of empowering a family through a lens of financial support. Tenant education is also a piece of pre-move services. So it's figuring out how to have conversations with landlords, how to, what do you do when you move in, how to prepare yourself for a move, what it's like to have neighbors. Have you lived in this type of housing structure before? Have you always lived in an apartment? What's it going to be like to live in a townhouse? What would it be like to live in a single family house? These conversations to really have meaningful conversations to set families up for success. Thinking about barrier reduction assistance, debt reduction and resolution, rental history coaching. So the way you frame your rental history really has an impact in how successful you are in having conversations with landlords and getting your foot in the door. So if you're talking and framing things in a way where you are shining light on the positivity and all of the steps that you've taken since maybe this blip that a landlord might really hyper focus on in a rental history, the way we frame that is important. And our coaches work with families to help have those conversations and lean into those conversations with landlords, not to avoid it, but really to bring it to the attention and talk about everything that has kind of changed or things that are different or circumstances, things to help our families get housed. And then, of course, financial assistance is important, helping with security deposits and application fees. We do that all in-house to streamline the process. We don't use an external vendor. We do that all through kind of the Met Council's financial system. So we're able to have a conversation with the landlord, guarantee a security deposit, and then get that security deposit there quickly. Next slide, please. Landlord recruitment. Our outreach coordinator works really, really hard to think about landlord recruitment, and I'm going to go into our outreach coordinator again in a future slide coming up. But one thing that when we're thinking about landlord recruitment is what we can offer, our outreach coordinator can offer to landlords when you are working with the mobility demonstration program or a community choice program. We're going to be able to streamline inspections for you. Our outreach coordinator is HQS certified. We go through tenant education, financial empowerment with the families that we serve. We're providing security deposits. You're going to get a guaranteed rent payment. It's really highlighting all the benefits of working with our programs and working with our families and all the supports that these families are going to have from the Metro HRA. We also can venture into mediation and assisting families with securing resources as they transition in their move. And really like to remind landlords that we're going to be visiting units. So you're not alone in this. We're partners and we are just as available as you need us to be. We have really focused on landlord focus groups throughout these last 18 months or so as we've been in this COVID time. And we've gone to a virtual platform. We've gotten great feedback from landlords because it's real easy to just open up a computer, click a link and share feedback. Some recent topics that we've covered in these landlord focus groups, just to show that we're committed to this partnership with our landlords in the community, is tell us about what your experience has been with small area fair market rent implementation, right? We did that, as you recall, it's almost been a year now. Or tell us what it's like working with us in COVID. What can we do better? What's been difficult? What's been hard? And then sharing with them the news of the emergency housing voucher program that's coming up, right? So we really want to prioritize meaningful conversations with the landlords so they are thinking of us as they have vacancies and really have a positive experience with the Metro HRA. Next slide, please. Housing search assistance is something that falls primarily in the bucket of our outreach coordinator, but most certainly with our other coaches as well. Metro HRA currently has one outreach coordinator, but we are in the process of hiring another as we speak. Terry mentioned earlier that we have lots of hiring happening in this outreach world, and that is exactly true. We're in the process of hiring an outreach manager. A manager of outreach and special initiatives is the title, as well as an outreach coordinator who's going to assist us with some housing search, not just with this mobility demonstration program, but in other aspects of our work, because this is a priority for the Metro HRA. But a housing search assistance isn't just looking online and finding vacancies and putting it into a spreadsheet. It's building landlord relationships. It's touring neighborhoods. It's visiting properties, establishing relationships with property managers. It's attending showings, helping fill out an application, doing all of that legwork that seemed to be barrier after barrier after barrier for a family when they're searching for housing. And when our vacancy rate is so low, the need to do things quickly and efficiently and answer any questions on site that a property manager or owner may have. As we are providing this housing search assistance, we're able to answer the questions quickly and say, hey, while I'm here, maybe I could just do an inspection for you. And we could see, and just really highlighting all of the awesome things that our HRA, that the Metro HRA can do in partnership. Next slide, please. Post-move services were really unique to what Metro HRA was doing in the Community Choice Program, but it is something that the Mobility Demonstration Program is going to offer. It is making sure, so we've done the pre-move, we've done the housing search, you're moved in, but how's it going? What's going on with are you engaged with the community? How's it going at school? Did you find your local library? Let's follow up now that you've moved in on those educational and employment related goals, or maybe some more financial empowerment strategies or revisiting goal saving strategies. And then that ongoing landlord mediation. Conflict happens, it's life, it's just the way humans work. And so we're here to help navigate that, to help make sure that we're able to be as helpful as we can. Metro HRA, in addition to doing these post-move services with our community choice program, we've also implemented a light version of this in our council-owned units. So with our family affordable housing program, we do a light version of these post-move services. 30 days after move-in, we're having these exact conversations. Have you found your library? Have you found your grocery store? How are you feeling? Are you settled in? What can we do? What's kind of falling through the cracks where we can be of service? Next slide, please. So where do we sit now? We are in year 1 of the mobility demonstration program. So all of these pillars that we've talked about, these pre-move services, housing search and landlord kind of recruitment and post-move services, this is the planning year of all of those pieces of that work. So we are meeting with HUD's technical experts weekly on Wednesdays to talk through what a drafted guidebook that HUD thinks, this is how we envision it, but where do you see kind of areas of concern? They're especially interested in the Metro HRA and MPHA, Minneapolis Public Housing, because we've done this. Like I said, the mobility demonstration program feels like it was meant for us because it's what we were doing with community choice. It's just now we're doing it at a federal level. So they are asking us really thoughtful questions. Because it's a research study, they have very rigorous ways in the ways that when families are receiving financial assistance, what you're allowed to spend this money on. And they're really trying to work through what is the best way for us to limit these funds, and asking really meaningful questions and really working through this with us. So we have another meeting this week actually to talk with them about the guidebook that they're drafting and the post-move and post-move services and things like that. So we're also going to be hiring new staff, like I've mentioned a couple times, and expect to be able to provide you a better definition of what the 6-year budget is going to look like in the coming months. Because we're still in this planning year, they've kind of shared with us that the deadlines for these targets or these goals that they have are really moving targets. It's going to depend on feedback that they get from these other housing authorities that are participating in this demonstration, and in just natural hiccups when working through this planning phase. We will certainly come back and be providing you really, really exciting updates as we work through all this mobility demonstration program year 1, year 2, year 3, and anything in between. Is we are really, really, really excited to start this. So with that, I guess I will pause and open up for questions, comments, anything that Terry or I can provide some more clarity on.
Yeah, thanks, Ms. Paulson and Ms. Smith. Yeah, I'll recognize you in just a second. Thanks for the work on this. This is really exciting. And For a year and a half of my career, I was the interim CEO at a project-based Section 8 property, and it was always frustrating, sort of the lack of supports for the renters and the residents there. So I think this is just a great step in the right direction. I'm interested to see what this yields. And so questions or discussions on that report, Councilmember Chambliss?
Yes, I'm sorry for interrupting. This is a very exciting way to end the day and exciting way to end the meeting. This looks like a very robust demonstration program, and the fact that it runs for 6 years gives time for continuous improvement and learning best practices, seeing the Met Council as experts in the field of housing, and just the holistic approach in terms of how everything really needs to work together for stability and financial success. So just very happy to be a part of this project and looking forward to seeing how the participants feel and move through it.
Cool. Thank you, Councilmember. Further discussion, Councilmember Bento.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To both Terry and to Stephanie and to the entire team you work with, congratulations. To get this grant money is huge. And I would imagine there was a lot of competition. And I want to echo what Councilmember Chambliss said in terms of what a great way to end a meeting, especially on such a hot day. I would think that now, post-COVID, we really have some especially unique opportunities. And I'll be interested in your updates to the extent that the COVID factor is a part of anything that you find in your work. I do want to suggest, and I think you kind of alluded to this, Stephanie, in your remarks, but I do want to suggest that there are a number of nonprofits that do a lot of work with families, particularly via elementary schools. I know that Neighborhood House in St. Paul works with schools on the east side of St. Paul with hunger issues, with housing issues, with medical issues. And I think it'd be a good idea to make sure that those nonprofits that are a part of it somehow get connected to your work, and because I think they can help elevate what we're doing here in the metro region. So again, thank you very much and congratulations.
Thank you, Councilmember. Ms. Smith, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I was just going to mention, Mr. Chair, and Councilmember Vento, I think those are exactly the kinds of connections that our mobility team have already made. Our outreach coordinators, they have the largest list of resources, and I know enough to be dangerous, but they know the resources in all of these communities, and we operate in such a large area. It's an undertaking, but they are true experts in getting people connected. And if somebody can get a security deposit from Salvation Army, we're going to take that before we're going to pay it ourselves. And so those are exactly the kinds of things they're doing. So really good thought, Councilmember Vento.
Mr. Chair, if I could,
Please.
Terry, thank you. I should have just known that. I mean, they work with you, so of course they're going to have this all figured out and be connected. So good work.
I might also add Councilmember Bento and Chair Lilligren, is that when we started the community choice program in 2015, we created neighborhood profiles. And so each community has an entire printout of like clinics, elementary schools, grocery stores. And as a part of, over this next year, we have started conversations and meetings and working with our incredible research team in ways that we can update that information and continue to think about strategies in ways that we can provide opportunity and choice to families. So, and helping with informed decisions. So we're gonna continue to work on those profiles and update those just to make sure they're up to date and current.
Thank you both. Thank you.
Thank you. Further questions or discussion on that report, Councilmember Lee?
Thanks, Chair. Sorry if I missed this, but what happens after 6 years? Do we get a chance to reevaluate and re-enroll in the program, or what happens?
Thank you for the question, Mr. Chair. If I may, Councilmember Lee, the family will still get to keep their voucher. It's just the program of the support sort of ends, and then their role, but there will be a, we haven't gotten into the weeds too much with the researchers, but there will be a formal report of, findings from these demonstrations that are, with the 9 agencies that were selected to participate all over the country. And so they will make some conclusions based on what we learned during the demonstration.
Thank you.
Thank you. Committee members, further questions or discussion on this report? Any further discussion? Yeah, Ms. Smith.
Chair Lilligren, I just want to just give a shout out. Stephanie sort of already did this too, but to Joel Hudding and his team of researchers at the council. We are so incredibly lucky to have them. Most housing authorities across the country do not have that in-house. And, data is not my thing. I don't know how to make a map and pull in all these extra variables, and they are amazing. So Joel and all the research team, we cannot do this without you. Incredibly talented group of people, and our outreach team too. So I just want to publicly recognize those teams. That we couldn't have designed this program without them. So thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. And I'm seeing a lot of emoji responses from our committee colleagues. So please pass around our enthusiasm and thanks. And please keep us informed as we go through the 6 years of this program. I think we're going to learn some really helpful and important things. So thanks to you and your team, Ms. Paulson, Ms. Smith. Cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none and seeing no further business to come before this committee, we're adjourned. Thank you. Enjoy your evening.